All you EFL Championship fans have presumably got a nice big stupid grin on your face like me, because it starts tonight. Let the games begin. Let the slog, the marathon, the genius, the chaos that is the EFL Championship commence today. We are going to do a little check-in on, not even on the eve of the new season, on the day of the new season. We're going to do a transfer update. It's probably going to get a bit crazy for the next week or two, and I want to try and get two more of these done, one halfway in between and one right at the end of the transfer window. We've been tracking it all summer, all the transfers in and out of all of the EFL Championship clubs. And today's a really good point actually to do it, because of obviously with player registrations and things of that nature, famous last words, we probably won't be caught out with people announcing stuff unless they are indeed playing possum ahead of the first round and want to announce at the last minute and give their opponents the least amount of time to prepare as possible. Speaking of preparation, as usual with this, my source is transfer marked, and fees as usual. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. Most of us don't. If you want to argue about what transfer fees are and aren't, send transfer marked a strongly worded email and leave me out of it. We'll try and focus on the actual players and what impact they might have at the clubs they are going to. And as ever, I'll completely reveal it's 10 a.m. Friday, 8th of August. So if anything gets announced a minute after I'm speaking now, it's not going to be in the video. But as I say, we've done 3 or 4 of these, and we should cover everything across the entire summer. Let's begin, as we always do, with our Year 1 parachute teams. Feels this summer has been the quietest Year 1 parachute summer for a while, doesn't it? Perhaps that's a consequence of yo-yoing. I don't know. You tell me. It doesn't feel like we've had the churn before, and particularly with the likes of Leicester and Southampton, maybe some big assets went 2 summers ago, didn't they? And also, what I always say about the parachute teams is they kind of line up with the Premier League a bit more. They're not going to start for another week, and we know it'll go later and later for those particular transfers. Leicester is just quiet, though, isn't it? They've just not done anything. And, I mean, they've still got El Khanous and Hermansen, who we thought might be the dominoes there. And I guess the guess that we're all making is that there's lots of discussions going on with the EFL, and there'll be bits and bobs going on in the background in terms of sanctions, and, you know, if they've spoken about soft business plans and things of that nature. The EFL and the Premier League, it was, who raised the charge for the PSR breach, far more in front of it than they were last time. And there's probably a scenario that Leicester are maybe having to sit there and go, okay, we need to wait this out. We can't be bringing in people, on big contracts if this is coming, particularly if there's going to be some kind of, business plan in terms of what salaries are allowed to be paid. I don't know whether it would go that far or whether it would just be a points deduction if indeed that does all come to pass. But I think that's the reason why Marti Cifuentes is just going to be working with what he's got. I'm sure there's going to be business done. Surely, if money comes in, players go out. Obviously, Hermansen, El Khanous we're thinking of, and money comes in, then you'd imagine Leicester will do bits and bobs. Ipswich, well, finally, and it was yesterday, central midfield slightly addressed a bit more. Jens Kayust. I mean, is he going to be ready to be involved tonight at Birmingham? I'll tell you in 10, 12 hours' time. The one thing you can say for that is he was on loan at the club last season, so it's not like Kieran McKenna is going to be working from, base camp zero with patterns of play. He'll know a lot of that stuff, but you'd imagine Jack Taylor will probably start in central midfield for Ipswich tonight, but Jens Kayust will be very, very much involved. We had a interesting debate about that actually on Blue Monday, me and Mikey last night. Got some very triggered Ipswich fans in the comments. We were just struggling with with this chasm that, how do you judge Kayust? He looks like a player, he looks like an athlete, but of course his experience in English football was getting relegated with Ipswich in the Championship. Obviously, the Boffins and Kieran McKenna, who seems to know a player, will have a better judgment than us. But it's always quite tricky to say how a player, who's just been relegated, who spent most of the season without the ball, is going to then transition. It's a lower level, and all of a sudden Ipswich will be favourites, and Jens Kajust will have the ball a lot. So, yeah, that's a big tick in the box there. Obviously, maybe we'll talk about Hayden Hackney when we get down to Middlesbrough, but it's been, what's the word? They say protracted in transfer cliches. It's been slow, hasn't it? And they've done Mutasiwa and Kajust. Now, if that's the central midfield, then that's the central midfield. And of course, we've had the wonderful Chuba Akpom saga, where he's not been announced at Birmingham or Ipswich or Middlesbrough. And we know what football fans are like, don't we? They'll take credit for anything. So if he's not announced before this game between Ipswich and Birmingham tonight, we're going to have Birmingham fans claiming genius on their part, that there was some delaying tactic, that they never wanted the player at all. They just wanted to stop Ipswich getting in for one round of 46 before tonight. If it goes the other way, you'll have Ipswich fans saying, oh, this is genius. They left it to the last minute and he's going to be able to come off the bench tonight. And he actually did his medical 6 months ago, and, lots of silliness about that. But it's all a bit of fun and extra narrative, isn't it? And potentially, if Akpom does land at Ipswich, they will have 2 of the last 3 Golden Boot winners in the Championship, with Sammy Smodics in there as well. So that could be an interesting one that may happen, may be announced. But let's be fair, he's gonna be for later, isn't he, Akpom, if he does indeed join up at Ipswich. Southampton, I think, are kind of halfway between the two, where Ipswich have maybe done a little bit more. Southampton does feel nicely stable. We are kind of still waiting for maybe Dibbling to go to the Premier League, and then you'd imagine a couple more signings come in for Southampton. And knowing how these things work, they're probably lined up already, and there's probably conversations had. But this is why the transfer window always goes to the last second, doesn't it? Because one thing delays another, and then even the players that may be going into Southampton, there'll then be players lined up to replace them at the clubs they're at, etc., etc. We've already spoken about Downs and Kwasi. Ramsdale has now gone out as well to Newcastle. I think they've got some money as well as a loan deal there. Walker-Peters, Ramsdale, Bednarek, Sulemana, Amo Amayu and Onachu all going out. So they have shed a few players, but new manager with Will Still, he's going to want to instill. There's going to be so many still puns. It's going to be terrible this season. You can shoot me down for those in the comments. He's going to want to instill his new pattern of play, and what was there before doesn't necessarily matter too much. But I suspect, like probably with Ipswich and Leicester, they'll be the big movers when we do this, in say 10 days time or right at the end of the window. That is your year one parachute teams. And we go on to our playoff losers, and Sheffield United may have replaced Vinny Souza. I guess this is the plan. Jibril Sumare, who comes in from SC Braga, which is in Portugal, 20-year-old. What flag is that? Senegal? 22-year-old central midfielder. We know Vinny Souza has gone out recently, and they rode out last season without Arblaster and with Peck and Souza in there, and sometimes Chowdhury in there as well. So you'd imagine that has been done. Big news as well on the outgoings. We went into this summer saying 3 names, didn't we? Harmer, Ahmedhodzic, Souza. Souza gone a couple of weeks ago to Wolfsburg. Ahmedhodzic has now also gone to Feyenoord. Slightly lower fee than you'd imagine, but I think he was in his last year of his contract, which always drops the fee down. He's been an excellent player for Sheffield United, Anel Ahmedhodzic. Harmer is still there, and you'd imagine if 2 of 3 have gone that he's probably staying, is he? You tell me, Blades fans, in the chat. But yeah, we spoke about Louis Barry as well last time. It does feel, if you're taking... It's difficult, isn't it? If you're taking star players out of a team, yes, you can then replace one player and bring in 2 or 3. Sometimes the numbers game doesn't work and you just need the quality concentrated in one player. So we'll see if Sheffield United are now weaker than last season. All will be revealed. Coventry, again, nice and stable there. And they've raised a little bit more money. As I scroll on my iPad, apologies. I'll look at you now. Lewis Binks going out. So they've actually raised 3 million euros for him, we think. We're still waiting on Milan van Erik, aren't we? Again, this is probably one where, I don't know, is a deal done with somebody and then we're just waiting for dominoes to fall, if that's the right transfer cliche there. But they look very solid, Coventry, and they've got a really good squad, haven't they? That's been built on the back of the sales of Gyökeres and Harmer, who we were just talking about. So I think stability's fine there from Coventry, and they've essentially already replaced Van Erik with Kane Kessler-Hayden if he does indeed go. Bristol City, one more to talk about there since we last spoke, which is Radek Vitek, who is on loan from Manchester United, a goalkeeper. I believe Max O'Leary is going to start the season injured. So that's always an interesting one. If your first choice keeper is not around, you loan somebody in, there's the shirt. And then maybe Gerhard Struber will have a first world problem there of if Vitek is playing well, does O'Leary get the shirt back? But he's just got to get fit and healthy again after... I think there are a few players there for Bristol City. We spoke about this in their playoff push last year that played a lot of minutes. I think O'Leary was one of them. Maybe they had 3 or 4 over 40 appearances and pushing for those full minutes, which is very difficult to do in a 46-game championship slog. There are your playoff losers. Sorry, people don't like it when I use the word losers. Not nice. Like that, isn't it? The teams that had great seasons, finished in the top 6, but didn't quite win in the playoffs. There we go. Have I framed that in a better way? Let's move on to our top teners. Blackburn have done one more since we last spoke. That is Axel Henriksen, who appears to be kind of an old school central midfielder. I remember speaking to Matt Holland about this because that was very much his game, where 6, 8s and 10s. You used to do all 3. Get some goals, do some defending, do a bit of playing as well. So don't know whether this is to preempt Lewis Travis possibly going out, but he's a decent age, isn't he? Henriksen, 23, comes in for a reported 800,000 euros from Sweden into the Blackburn squad. And we've spoken about the other deals already done at Rovers this summer. Where are we going? We're going to Millwall. And Millwall have had a good window, aren't they? I know we've obviously spoken about Birmingham, Wrexham and Charlton having tremendous windows. And then Norwich. Do we now start to put Millwall in that bracket? Because we like Coburn. Luongo is probably just clever and sensible. Kroko, Serge. But Alfie Doughty feels like the most Moneyball player in Championship football at the moment, doesn't it? Remember that scene in Moneyball with Brad Pitt, if you've seen it, where they're doing the recruitment and he gets on base. Yeah, but he's old. He gets on base. Yeah, but he's got an injury record. He gets on base. If you're talking about Alfie Doughty in the recruitment meeting, it's he crosses really well. Yeah, but he crosses give him the ball, play him wing back or full back or whatever. Give him the ball, let him cross it and cross it and cross it. And if you've got Ivanovic and Coburn in the box, then this could be a really, really good signing for Millwall. I'm sure there are plenty interested in Doughty, and obviously with Luton's peculiar double relegation, there's a few assets that people have been keen to pick up from the Kenny, and Doughty in to Millwall I think is an excellent signing. Stephen Bender in on loan, keeper from Fulham. I think the lad Jensen played most of the season, didn't he? Play all the games last year, so I don't know. Is he just depth there, or is he a Is he a first choice keeper? I don't know. Millwall fans, let me know in the comments there. I could probably look into that a little bit more. None the wiser me. West Brom, again, this could be good or this could be bad. On the one hand, they haven't done a great deal. But on the other hand, it feels fairly concentrated with Hegebo, Phillips and Campbell. And that's coming up at 10 million euros worth of investment. So they've not lost anybody. And they've certainly a nucleus of 3 players there for Ryan Mason. You know, what is the best case scenario? I remember talking to David Johnson on an interview on Blue Monday. I'm representing Blue Monday today as well. And he said how George Burley did it back in the day is how he believes transfers should be done. 3 per window, and you might have to sell 1 a year and just keep little tweak, add in a little bit more. Don't go crazy. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes it's, you know, examples are few and far between, but sometimes it's fun for 8, 9 players to come in, and sometimes it works. But more often than not, that pattern of play is more important than a mass influx. So, yeah, we'll see how that pans out at West Brom. Middlesbrough feels a little bit, I don't know, well, not chaotic, but I can't think of the word I'm trying to pick here. Disorganised, not ideal. And we spoke about Middlesbrough drifting in the odds on the Bookies Odds video, which you can find in the archives yesterday or the day before. I can't remember what day it is. But it feels like, reading between the lines, the club wanted the Hackney deal to just be done so they could crack on. We know Hackney and Vandenberg have been linked with moves away and would be the funds for Rob Edwards to bring in new players. And we think Hackney got reasonably close with Ipswich, but ultimately didn't want to do the deal and is probably waiting for Spurs or West Ham, maybe. Which is fine if you're Middlesbrough, but you might just have to gamble a little bit and go early and spend your money knowing that, well, what if that Hackney deal then does not happen? So it's a tricky one for Boro, really. But, I mean, have they already replaced Hackney? Because Abdoulaye Kante, who's, there you go, that's why I said the Sheffield United midfielder was 20. It's this lad who's 20. Been looking at too many players this morning, researching this. He's come in from France for 3 million euros, 20 years old. And with Aidan Morris there in central midfield, there's already, you know, a good kind of partnership there to build on, which is going to get broken up if Hackney leaves. You do have the feeling that, as I said, I'm repeating myself now, that deal needs to be done to pay for all of these. Callum Britton and Alfie Jones have also been announced since we last spoke. They're both coming through as undisclosed, although I think they're probably going to be both quite chunky. I'll have a complete guess. Britton and Jones between them, 6 to 8 million. We think the rumoured fees for Britton were 3.5 million. Maybe the same for Jones. You're talking about, they're both 27-year-old. They're both English players who know the Championship and have tons and tons of appearances, don't they? So, yeah, if you want you're ready to go to add to your exotic young midfielder from France, then that works pretty well. We do still think, I know they've cashed in on Coburn, we do still think Hackney or Vandenberg might be a big sale. Maybe both of them, I don't know, between now and the end of the season. So a bit tricky for Rob Edwards, I think. He would have probably just liked a big pot of money and, you know, the deal to have been done at the start of June. And here we are on August the 8th, literally with kickoff tonight. Not ideal. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, especially if you're a Borough fan. Right, let's move on to the middle order. Swansea, well, speaking of early deals at the start of June, they seem to go in that direction, which is nice work if you can get it, if the players are available. What am I adding in here? The only one that's new to me is Caelan Casey, who's a 20-year-old centre-back coming in on loan from West Ham. Didn't Frank Lampard famously once go from West Ham to Swansea on loan? Am I right about that? I think I might be. Fact check me in the comments there. What a player Frank Lampard was. Hey. I know obviously they lost Darling, didn't they? Had a good partnership with Darling and Cabango. So we'll see what Alan Sheehan is going to be fathoming central midfield. And sometimes with Premier League loan centre-backs, it is just the physicality that the academies can get the elite players physicality-wise. And sometimes, you worry about experience of sticking a centre-back in on loan, kind of aged 20 years old. But look, I'm sure we all remember Ben White going on loan from, who was that, Brighton to Leeds. And, you know, if the quality's there, then get him in there. Jean-Paul Van Hecker as well. Remember him going in at Blackburn. You know, these are players that are worth a hell of a lot of money playing in the Premier League now. So Swansea will hope they've got the latest one there. Sheffield Wednesday, I mean, what do I say? It literally says on my notes, meh. Meh. We talked about Sheffield Wednesday loads during the summer, and it's not been great. And of course, in terms of transfer activity, they're embargoed. So, I mean, I think, can they do freeze? I think they can do freeze, but with a salary limit as well. And so many players have left. I will be here. I'll be late to get to Birmingham later if I read you all the Wednesday players that have gone out. So yeah, just rubbish. Bigger things at play at Wednesday. Sell the club, please. Go away, Mr. Chansiri. Let's get somebody in. And, you know, we're not worried about transfers when it comes to Wednesday at the moment. They'll be worried about a trip to Leicester on Sunday. How about that? And check out the predictions with Sam. As you can imagine, I've predicted a heavy defeat for Wednesday. I hope it's not going to be like that all season, but it feels like that's how things are going to play out. Now, let's talk about Norwich, because we were talking about the ideal way, as in dripping in a few players. Yeah, that's all very sensible, but the Norwich fans are having a bloody lovely time this summer, because I tell you what's exciting. How many am I going to count here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I know there's a couple of keepers in there, so strictly speaking, what I'm about to say is not true, but they've signed a whole new team. And you know, brought in a new manager as well. Papa Diallo, €5 million, that says. 21-year-old winger, and it looks like they managed to gazump Watford on that deal. He comes in from FC Metz in France. All very exciting stuff. Who else have we got? What a great name this is. Mirko Topic. I'm sure it's like Topic or something like that if he's... I can't even... What flag is that? Croat? Don't even know my flags. Well, do you know, I used to have a flag book when I was a kid. That shows what a nerd I was, but I blooming loved that book. Anyway, remember Daniel Farker and his topics that he liked to talk about? Well, they've literally got a player called Topic, and he's been valued reasonably highly here on Transfermarkt. He comes in from Portugal for, again, €3.5 million. And this is where the plot might thicken. I saw Jack on Talk Norwich City doing a video that are they actually quite keen to move Núñez on because maybe they've got replacements already and they're already sorted in central midfield. Marcelino Núñez has been very good, I think, in central midfield. And maybe you're at the point now, if you're Norwich, where it's like, right, if you can get 10, 15 million for Núñez and keep Josh Sargent, is that better than getting 20, 25 million for Josh Sargent? And, you know, you've got your goal machine there who could fire you into the top 6 or higher. So it's very exciting for Norwich. They've certainly, maybe other than Birmingham and Wrexham and Charlton, been the most fun, haven't they? And it's a completely brand new team for Liam Manning. He's got to gel all those players, but he's proven himself to be a very capable operator in that regard at MK, Oxford and Bristol City. So Norwich remains a source of excitement. Watford has been a little bit quiet. Obviously, they would have liked to do Diallo. They've sold Ryan Porteous, who I actually thought was perfect in terms of a championship centre-back. But he's gone. Oh, nice move that. LA. Good luck to you, mate. Go and work over there. Enjoy the sunshine all day, every day. But one thing I will say about Watford, fair play. It looks like they've banked, and this is Transfermarkt numbers, so take them how you see fit. €9.37 million on players coming in, which puts them in profit, even though they've done Iran Kunda and Marma. There's none disclosed in there to Udinese, so who the hell knows what that is. But yeah, nothing else inward. But yeah, looks like they've balanced it up quite well, and we'll see how Mr. Petzolano, you know, like we're saying about Liam Manning, gels of that lot. Right, in we go. Bottom half. QPR have signed a striker since we last spoke. That's about that, on top of the headlines being Poku and new contracts, frankly, for Jimmy Dunn and Sam Field. Roman Burrell, wasn't there a sprinter called Burrell? He might have even had the 100-metre dash world record as well. Did he? Carl Lewis? Leroy Burrell. I got it. There you go. Go back into your 1990s sprinters there. I'm showing my age once again. Can Roman Burrell show his quality? Over €1 million, it says here, from Burton Albion in League One. He scored goals in Scotland and in League One. Can he do it in the Championship? He looks like a player who's on a good scoring streak, but the level is going up and up and up. We'll see what he can do with Julien Stéphan at QPR. Pompey have actually done another 3 since we last spoke. They've been a bit of a slow burner over the summer. We'd already spoken about Swift and Segacic. In comes, from Hungary, Mark Kozvonski, who they have apparently spent over €1 million on here, Pompey. What's the transfer record at Pompey? Or is it something crazy from before they went bust? Yeah, I'm sure it is, isn't it? It comes in from Budapest, MTK Budapest, a central midfielder in there. He joins John Swift, who we'd spoken about, and Luke LaRue, who, what flag is that? Zimbabwe, South Africa, possibly? From Värnamo in Sweden, which is undisclosed as well. They've also done an internal loan. Florian Bianchini, always interested in these internal loans, Championship to Championship. That's Swansea to Pompey. Although they did that last year. What was the lad from Boro? Silvera. So they've been very kind of pragmatic and clever and careful, haven't they, Pompey? And you talk about just dripping people into a successful team. Well, they've got 2-year... Actually, the back end of the half season under Mousinho was good as well. So they've got a 2.5-year run of momentum now. So, yeah, do it this way, Pompey. I get it. And I also get what Oxford United are doing because, and this makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? If you're going to drop fees, drop them on De Keersmacher and Spencer, who are fullback and a sitting central midfielder. And then if you do your loans on your attackers, because just by virtue of the fact that goals is the commodity and attacking players, strikers, creators always cost more, maybe do those as loan deals because you maybe don't have the expense. And they've done another 3 here. Luke Harris in the attacking midfield spots from Fulham. Nick Prelec, who's come in from Cagliari as well as a striker. I know they started with Harris, didn't they? A different Mark Harris last season up top. Oxford. Oh, who did he bring in? Who he had at Millwall before? Bradshaw as well came in. They're trying to fix the goal scoring issue there. And remember, under Rauer, often it's defense first, and you just need a fox in the box. Might get chances few and far between. They've got to take those chances. Ian Fleming was very good at that, although he had a great shot from outside the box for Rauer at Millwall. This one's really interesting, though, because Will Lancashire has played Premier League football for Spurs and was actually in and around that first-team squad a fair bit. So that could be a really interesting one. I know they did Dane Scarlett, didn't they, as well? So obviously there's a relationship there with Oxford United and Spurs. And makes all the sense in the world. And if you believe and patronise Oxford, they'll be one of the lower budgets in the division. Make that loan market work for you. And does it matter if you don't build the star, if you get 15 goals out of them? No, of course not. Do the deal. Get it done. Smart business from Oxford. I like it. Stoke have also done a Spurs loanee striker. Jamie Donnelly. Was he on loan at Leyton Orient last year? Is that the same guy? Let me just go on his player history. Yeah, he was. Okay, that's great. I love stories like that where a player goes, right, loan, League Two, loan, League One, loan, Championship. And obviously the holy grail is he can work his way into being a Spurs striker. But it's hard with these elite clubs to few and far between the young players that actually can get in and play first team football. A lot of the time, this is just trading and business. But maybe Stoke can benefit from that, and Leyton Orient certainly did as well. And they've done a fair few now, Stoke, haven't they? Mubama, Thomas, Bozenic, Cresswell, Talovarov. Nice easy ones for me to pronounce. Derby County, I'm quite excited by Derby's business as well. And lots of free transfers, lots of John Eustace going back to players he knows. But I do think actually lots of cause for excitement for Derby. Oh God, I've got 5 more here. Owen Beck, fullback in from Liverpool. So that's an elite club loanee. Bobby Clark, central midfield in from Salzburg. Dion Sanderson. John Eustace always signs Dion Sanderson. Use whatever pronunciation you feel comfortable with. David Ozo. Now that's a great signing because Sam on the check-in particularly liked Ozo in central midfield on loan from Palace. But he got hurt, didn't he, in the back end of last season. So, yeah, no-brainer. That he's already been there, Ozo, and already stepped up to the plate. And this one's fascinating. Everyone wants to do the deal where you take the player that everyone thinks is a bust, but no, he's not. And you get him, and you get a tune out of him. And I'm talking Rhian Brewster, who was, frankly, sensational when he came from Liverpool to Swansea on that first loan. And then, had that massive transfer to Sheffield United and just struggled so badly. So, look, it might be a big nothing burger and Brewster might continue to struggle. But what if Derby rehabilitate Brewster to the level he was at a few years ago? What would it have been? COVID season 19-20 on loan at Swansea with Stevie Cooper. If they get that Rhian Brewster, happy days on a free transfer as well. That'll be goals. Feels a bit binary, doesn't it? Feels like it'll be one or the other and nothing in between. But yeah, I think a bit of an expensive mistake in the end. Good luck to him, Brewster, but Sheffield United fans will see that as can John Eustace do the rehabilitation job that all managers want to do in the transfer window. Preston, one more in. Again, like Swansea, Preston went fairly early in the market and filled things up. And I think we're just speaking about a fullback, aren't we? Yes, Andrea Vukcevic, I don't know, pronunciation, is a fullback coming in there. 28 years old, coming in from, is that a Mexican flag there? FC Juarez? You tell me. We're having a lovely time with our exotic player names and club names and things of that nature today, aren't we? Is he going to be a big, massive signing? I don't know. I think you're still looking at Jebison and Afia, who they've dumped over €1 million into as the potential difference makers. But Preston have sought to address the bad slide. Could have gone down on final day, couldn't they, last season, Preston? They've given Paul Heckingbottom some tools. They've reacted. Maybe Heckingbottom's gone into the higher-ups and said, guys, I need some players. Look what happened at the end of last season. And hey, that's almost a noose around the neck for some manager, because if you go in and say, I need some players, and they give you them, and you're still struggling just outside the relegation zone, then they're not going to think it's the players then, are they? But we'll see how Heck goes with that. Hull are fascinating because they are under a soft embargo, which means they can still do deals after a fashion. Loans, freeze. I don't know if someone smarted me up in the comments and chat. Hull on a wage restriction? I think there might be as well. Forgive me. Too many EFL sanctions over the years for me to remember all of them. What we do know about Hull and Mr. Ilachali, that guy loves to do a deal, doesn't he? And I've got another 5 here to talk about. He loves to do a deal with Turkish clubs, doesn't he? Enis Destan, young striker in 23 from Trabzonspor. Akin Famewo. This must have been really galling for Sheffield Wednesday, where you take one club that's got an embargo, Wednesday, and literally their players are still being picked off by another club that's got an embargo. For Mayo going in on a free. I think a lot of the Sheffield Wednesday ones, they basically could just walk out of their contracts in the end. I think it's been breached, a lot of them, by the non-payment or late payment, indeed, of salary by Mr. Chancery. But I like Famewo, good physical player. Prefer him in a back three. So we will see what Sergei, Jakirovic. Man, this is hard doing this job. 24 teams and worldwide cast of names. And here we go with a bit of Sheffield United kind of Premier League 2019-20. Ollie McBurney and John Lundstrom have come in. I think Lundstrom went off to Rangers in Scotland, didn't he? But yeah, a good kind of old school box-to-box central midfielder there. Didn't they have Billy Sharp as well at one point, Hull? And McBurney's a fascinating one because, again, from the Moneyball point of view, can he do one thing very well? Yes. Can you stick him up front and have him hustle, win aerials and bring other people into play? Yes, you can. You really, really can. And he's been very good at that over the years. Few comments on his character. He was linked with Ipswich, actually. So I've read this chapter and verse about, some naughty step issues at a few of his clubs. But Hull are in a position where they just need to get people in the door with the embargo they've got. And I think that could turn out to be a good sign, and we'll see what they can get out of McBurney on the pitch. And we've got an elite loanee as well, Joel Ndala, winger, 19, from Manchester City. And who knows, have you got the next whoever? Everyone wants the next Reece James, don't they? Easier said than done, but you've got to, in the words of Ron Atkinson, there you go, there's one for you. You've got to buy a ticket if you want to win the raffle. Hey? Right, here we go. These have always been the longest segments on these transfer updates because the League One clubs have been going for it. Birmingham have done one more. The Birmingham fans keep telling me that they never wanted Chuba Akpom at all. And it was all a big ruse to slow Ipswich down because they wanted to sign Marvin Dukes, who let the Dukes out. From Werder Bremen for €2 million, it says. And it's another, really sensible signing, isn't it? An experienced player. And we often compare, say, the Portuguese top league, the German top league, the Dutch top league, French top league with the Championship. I think when you're talking about the German top league, you're expecting to get quality out of it. Maybe less so than Netherlands or Portugal, where you've got a few very strong clubs. I don't know, you can say the same for Germany. But, Dukes has got a good record, 31. Not going to have to be coaching him too much, are you? Just learn the patterns of play, and he should be ready to go. To add to, and I think it's 9 now, and a very palpable sense that Birmingham City have signed players to get them promoted this season. That appears to be the deal, and Marvin Dukes is the latest. Let's move on, though, to Wrexham, who have just progressively gone more and more aggressive in this window. So we already have spoken on the channel about O'Brien, Kacheche, Thomason, Hardy, Windass and Ward, but 2 more. And when I was talking about Sunderland getting promoted to the Premier League, I said we want to see Sunderland do what they've been doing already, just at a higher level. And I'm kind of enjoying Wrexham doing what they've been doing at League 2 and League 1 level, at a higher level. And that is getting experienced, high-quality, leader-type players into the club. And here come Kiefer Moore and Connor Cody. Now, you can say what you like. They're both 32, about their ability to run for 90 minutes. That's fine. You cannot question either of those guys' CVs. Connor Cody, back in the day with Nuno at Wolves, promoted from the Championship in a great team with Willy Bolly next to him and the late Diogo Jota and Ruben Neves in midfield. And then he came back, and Leicester did this exact trick with Connor Cody. Right, we need leaders in the squad who've been promoted before. In comes Connor Cody. Connor Cody gets promoted with Leicester City as well. So I think also the way Phil Parkinson will have Connor Cody play is far more conducive to Connor Cody playing a lot of games than how Enzo Maresca, for example, wanted him to play with that massive, remember the massive gap, and Wout Faes used to be out at fullback, and, you know, a Leicester centre-back would be just in the middle of the pitch completely on his own while they piled everybody forward. You'd think he'll get to do a bit more head it, kick it, and lead the team at Wrexham. And Kiefer Moore, speaking of leading the team, has led a few teams to the playoffs and indeed promotion. So look, I'm a big fan of Kiefer Moore because he's been through Ipswich a couple of times. And he's a great story, Kiefer, because he worked his way up. He signed for Ipswich. And because I'm going to pay him big compliments in a second, I will tell the truth. He was dreadful when he arrived from like Yeovil or Torquay or wherever it was to Ipswich. Couldn't hold the ball up, you know, couldn't run, couldn't make it stick. And he worked his tail off. He went down to Rotherham and Barnsley and scored loads of goals. Then came back to Cardiff, and all of a sudden he's in, you know, he's a Championship playoff kind of player, and, you know, a very useful asset. And then teams going for promotion start to sign him, and Bournemouth took him, and obviously he went up with Bournemouth. Did he go somewhere before Ipswich? He might have as well. But then he comes into Ipswich, and that was a great signing. Really, really great signing for Ipswich halfway through the season. Experience, leadership, physicality. Kiefer Moore gets promoted again. And he probably should have got promoted again last season. And bless Big Keith, he gave the ball away, didn't he, for that goal right at the end of the playoff final. Wrong place, wrong time, mate. Ahmed Hodzic off for a concussion break. And, yeah, he gave the ball away. And Sunderland scored the winning goal in the 96th minute or whatever it was. Brutal. But, and again, it's the Welsh international connection. I know they were linked with Nathan Broadhead. That deal hasn't gone through yet, has it? But, yeah, fair play Wrexham. And that's a couple of players who may not have resale value, may not be exotic, may not be young and, I was going to say young and sexy. Very handsome men, Kiefer Moore and Connor Cody. So maybe one side of that equation, but fashionable, let's just say. But they will do a job at raising the level of Wrexham's squad to be very competitive in the Championship. Speaking of very competitive, you've got to love Charlton's transfer window, haven't you? Round it out. So you have to wait until the end of these, always, Charlton fans. But this is just great, isn't it? 11 million euros spent. Hopefully that's not too big a gamble there. We've already spoken about Burke, Bell, Carey, Rankin Costello, Kaminsky, Alafe and Apter. And okay, I do accept the comment about building a League One dream team. Will that work in the Championship? I happen to think it probably will if Nathan Jones is your manager. But speaking of League One dream teams, who was, apart from maybe Alfie May, your go-to guy for goals, your bagsman, your League One version of Ian Rush or Steve Bull or whoever, Charlie Kelman. There you go, 3.5 million euros. He's only 23 as well. He scored goal after goal for Leyton Orient last year in League One. And I'm sure he's ready. He didn't fancy it at QPR. I kind of understand if you've been bought by a club and you've not really got a sniff of the first team. That, oh, you want me now? I've scored a load of goals. Well, QPR cashed in on him. So it hopefully works out well for all parties. And Charlie Kelman, can he do it at Championship level with Nathan Jones? And can Harvey Nibbs do it at Championship level? I remember Harvey Nibbs, I think I'm getting the right player, scoring a brilliant goal for Cambridge against Ipswich when Ipswich were in League One. Look that one up. Swazzes it in. Bends it in outside of the right foot, swinging in to the far post. Great goal. He went to Reading. And it looks like a couple of million euros here from Reading to Cambridge. So, yes. Look, Kelman, Apter, Nibbs, Alafe, Carey. I suppose you could... I'm not saying Bell and Burke because they were literally Premier League and then Championship. But those other players I mentioned, the best players probably Charlton came up against in League One last season that weren't playing for Birmingham or Wrexham indeed. The ones that were still available from the third tier. You know what I'm saying. But yeah, I don't know how much of a gamble it is dropping this money. I don't know what the PSR position will be going down the line for Charlton. But you got to love it. Having your three teams coming in from League One, all going to have a massive competitive crack at the Championship this season. There it is. It's not the last transfer update of the summer, but it's very much the last transfer update before we kick off now. In 10 hours' time, we will be approaching half-time at St Andrews Knighthead Park, and the incessant slog, the brilliance, the chaos of the Championship will have begun. I do hope to do, let's say we'll do at least one more, say in about 10 days' time, and then obviously lots of transfer stuff as the window closes, I think at the start of September. So get your views in via the comments on players arriving at your club, what you think, players arriving at other people's clubs. Again, just to reiterate, my source is Transfermarkt. We get lots of people who want to kind of be pedantic and try and argue like they're in the office with the CEO doing these business about PSR numbers and transfer fees, etc. If you don't know, please have the humility enough to acknowledge that you don't know. I don't know, and I'm here making a video about it. But what I do know is the players that have gone in, and I've given you my opinion on all of those. Please get your opinion down there in the comments and have a little click up there. What should we stick up there? We'll put the last transfer update we did. And if you haven't seen it already, oh my God, get in there. My Championship 1 to 24 predictions. Never a dull moment there. Bring on the Championship!